Andy Johnson, Minnesota State University. Just some ideas on using research in education and being a critical evaluator. First of all, when we use research, know also that we can use research-based theory to support an approach or an idea. Remember, theories are built on data or interrelated concepts, and research is used to create these concepts and from which data is collected. Now, a good example is Piaget's theory. We can base a lot of our teaching, and a lot of teaching has been based on Piaget's theory. It's a research-based theory. Know that research in education is different from research in the physical sciences. We can't use the standards in the physical science and apply them to research in education for many reasons. The biggest is that human beings are not standardized products. In the physical world, a chemical compound in Brazil would be the exact same as that same chemical compound in Edina, Minnesota. But a child in Brazil, an 8-year-old child, is much different than an 8-year-old child in Edina, Minnesota. The circumstances, the variables, all are different. All right? We don't live in a black and white world. Human beings are not constant entities, are consistent variables as well. Now, in the physical sciences, what most of us conceive is the scientific method. We have control in experimental groups, right? This works great in the physical world. This is one type of science used in the physical world. But in education, we can't rely on this. How do you deny treatment to one? Have an experimental control. Random assignment to groups is more difficult because kids are already grouped in classroom. We cannot control all the variables because teachers are different, schools are different, kids are different. There's just too many variables. Know that there is no single scientific method. Rather, there are methods of science. And the method of science you use in a good study or research should be determined by the question. Different questions call for different type of research. You may use quantitative research or experimental research where you tend to prove or disprove a hypothesis, or qualitative research, where the goal is to understand, to observe what's happening. Both are used to build theories. What we want to find out, essentially, is what is effective teaching. What is an effective teacher? What helps children learn? And by the way, there's no single answer to that. If there were, I would have written a book and made $1 million. In education, sometimes people outside of education says there's a gold standard. The gold standard is a particular type of research. The gold standard in educational research is experimental research, the controlled, the quantitative type of research. All right, things have been tested and things have, but you cannot apply the same methods or standards from the physical sciences to the social sciences. And these are all types of social sciences, education, social work, psychology, but we cannot control the variables. So yes, we do have some quantitative research, but that is simply one type, and it's not the gold standard. Something also we need to be aware of when we're looking at research is groups of study that are approved by people outside of education. All right? For example, the What Works Clearinghouse. A panel has said that these are the studies. These are the ones that we look at. These are the ones that prove conclusively that a thing is so. And these are usually biased by people who only understand quantitative and experimental research, all right? It's usually people outside of education making decisions about what type of research is good. And the What Works Clearinghouse, it's not bad or misinformation, it's just limited. You have a very limited set of studies. It's like looking through the world, at the world through a cardboard tube. And in relying on outside experts to determine what studies in the What Works Clearinghouse, we are ignoring national organizations. Now, I'm going to look just at literacy because that's my area. I'm just an old literacy professor. But we have these national organizations, International Reading Association, National Association of Teachers. These are all organizations that have been around for a long, long time. Thousands of teachers, thousands of scholars and researchers over many, many years that have built a solid foundation, have decided that have agreed upon certain things. We have people all over the perspective. But I want a literacy person to determine the types of studies that are or are not important. Would we have a literacy person select what works in medicine or dentistry? We simply do not have the background knowledge to make such a determination. Case in point, and this is an important point, how you define reading determines the questions you ask. If you define reading as simply sounding out word, well, the questions you ask, the research methodology, the data you collect, the type of measures, the conclusions you make is much different than if you define reading as creating meaning with print. That's why it's important to have a deep background body of knowledge in order to understand the field in which research is created. All right, end of this video. The next one will look at critically reviewing literacy research.